Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm actually going to look using cream eyeshadows. So I had a request to do a video around cream eyeshadows, kind of tips and tricks, brushes to use, how to use them. So I thought I'd do that in today's video. As you can see, I have already got my base on. I did film it quickly. It is kind of the same products that I always use, so I will insert that footage now of my base, but like I said, it's kind of products that I use all the time. Onto the eyes. So I actually don't own too many cream eyeshadow products, which is strange because they're great for that kind of one and done look. So if you're in a rush in the morning, you just want to pop something on the lids, cream eyeshadows are really good. The one I'm going to use today is the Aggressive Tint shadow in Plum. So just a nice coppery reddy purple tone. But before I'm going to do that, I am going to add a base to the eyes. Now, kind of how you want to work with the cream eyeshadow will depend on how oily your eyelids are. Mine don't really get too oily, which is great. But if you're someone who does have really oily eyelids, I would recommend a primer or a concealer that's going to be mattifying. It will just help lock in the cream eyeshadow in place a lot longer. This one actually does dry down, so that's another tip. Find cream eyeshadow that does dry down slightly, because that will also help with the longevity of the eyeshadow. If you're someone who doesn't suffer from oily eyelids, you probably won't need to do anything. I do like to add a little base just because I do have freckles on the eyes and a little bit of discoloration, so I just like that blank canvas anyway. So I'm going to go in with my Lily Lolo eye primer. Like I said, I don't really suffer from oily eyelids, so I don't find so I do know some people have used this and said that it's too oily for eyelids. So like I said, if you've got really oily eyelids, I'd go for a primer or a concealer that specifies in being like matte and mattifying down. That will just help. So I'm going to take this across the eyes just to prep them. Like I said, I'm doing this because I like a blank canvas. Okay. Now when it comes to actually applying the eyeshadow, there are kind of multiple ways of doing it. I quite like using a buffing brush like this. This is actually a concealer brush from Iconic London. Real Techniques do one like that. It's just going to pick up, it won't pick up too much product, but it's just going to make it really fast and easy to buff out. You can use your fingers as well. I know a lot of people do like using that, so I'm going to use both. I'm going to do one on each eye. So I'm going to show you with the brush first. I'm just picking a little bit up. I'm just going to tap off on the hand, and I'm just going to work this onto the lid. And you'll see just how quick it is. So I'm just going to build this up bit by bit, and I would recommend with the cream eyeshadow taking a small amount of time, just building up. But it's just really fast product to use. So after a couple of times kind of buffing it everywhere, I will then go ahead and just build up a little bit on the lid, because that's where I want the most emphasis. But I'm just going to pat out the edges of my finger, and that's it done. That's what I think is really great about cream eyeshadows, is just how fast they are to apply. Obviously you can get deeper shades, lighter shades, so this is quite like a medium tone on the eye, so it's quite perfect for an everyday look, even though it's kind of really coppery and stuff. When it hits the light, it's really pretty, that copper shows through, but it's not too intense that you can't use it for an everyday basis. So I'm going to take a little bit more just on the lid. The finger works really well as well. The only thing I find, it's harder to get a bit more of a buffing action going. What I will say is the finger will pick up more product, so it'll be more intense on the eye, whereas a brush will kind of keep some of that product in the brush. And then I'm just going to feather up. So this is where I prefer a brush, because I find it easier just to feather up into the crease, but it's done. So slowly build up, but like I said, this one does dry down slightly, which is great, so it's just going to make it a bit more long lasting. It's not going to be too creamy where it slips and slides all over the place, but it doesn't. So the tool you use to apply is really kind of down to preference, I think. Like I said, the finger I think will add a bit more product initially to the eyes, but you can obviously build up with a brush, but I find the brush is just much easier to kind of buff out those edges. Yeah, I definitely go for like a thick brush like this as well. Okay, I'm going to pop a little bit under my eyes. And now for under the eyes, I would go for a smaller brush. Obviously I don't want like a thick amount under there. I don't think a finger's going to work particularly well under the eyes either. So I'm taking a pencil brush. I'm just going to drag a little bit along. And I'm just going to take that brush, fluffy brush, and just buff out the edges. Now I do think you can mix cream and palette eyeshadows together. I think cream eyeshadow actually acts as a nice base, so you can go on top with a palette eyeshadow. So that's another trick. If you've got really oily eyelids, as well as going with a mattifying base, you can then just pat over with a very similar colour eyeshadow, and even just in the crease, or a translucent powder, sorry, and just pat into those areas where you know you get oily, where it starts to crease. That will also just help prevent it, or keep it a bit more long lasting on the eyes. I am going to go with a little bit of shadow, but it's more to add a bit of shimmer. So I'm going to go in with, where am I? What am I going to do? Yeah, actually no, I'm going to go in with some of Ruby. That kind of matches what I've got going on now. I'm going to take out my finger, and I'm just going to pat over the top. Just add a bit more kind of shimmer to the lid. What was that? Like I said, this is going to act for a great base for powder eyeshadow, but also if you have got really oily eyelids, it's just going to help add or set that cream eyeshadow in place. What I'm going to do is take a little bit of the shimmer, citrine, and just in a corner with my finger. I'm going to quickly go in and add some mascara to the eyes, take my Ilia mascara. I'm just going to quickly finish off the lips, and I'll go over kind of the tips and tricks one last time. So I'm actually going to take this again, and just do a little something on the lips, make it a bit more monochromatic. Okay, so that's the makeup look done. So it's a very quick video, but I just wanted to give some quick tips and tricks using cream eyeshadows. So like I said, to begin with, the base is important, so it depends how oily your eyelids are. Either you can just go straight in with the cream eyeshadow if you tend to have normal eyelids, or if you want that little bit kind of more of a blank canvas, then going with the eye primer or concealer. But if you've got really oily eyelids, definitely go in with something that's kind of more mattifying. It says like it's a mattifying concealer, or it's a eyeshadow base that says it's mattifying. That will just help keep the oils from coming through, prevent them coming through too quickly. In terms of applying the cream eyeshadow, like I said, like a thick brush or like a dense, something like a buffing brush, or your finger, I think works really nicely. Like I said, the finger will put down more product because it won't retain or soak up any of the product, so you get a lot more intensity on the lid, but I do find that it's harder to buff into the crease, so you just have to take your time and pat. But using a kind of more buffing brush, it'll pick up a bit less product, but it's really quick to buff everything out, and you can just build up slowly. I mean, both ways I would just build up slowly, but what's great about cream eyeshadows is it's very quick and easy to do. And it looks like you've put effort into your eyes, even though it's just the one cream shadow you've put all over the lid. So yeah, so kind of the tool you use is really what you prefer, but I'd go with either a finger or a buffing brush. They're my two go-tos. Obviously, if you want to pop along the lower lash line like I have, you will need something smaller than a buffing brush in your finger. A pencil brush will work perfectly, but for the main base of the eye, I would even maybe go with the finger to get that intensity down and use the buffing brush to buff it out into the rest of the eye. The final trick I have, if you have got really oily eyelids, is to either then set the cream eyeshadow in the crease with translucent powder, or go in with a very similar shade. So I added that nice ruby toned from the Solstice palette just on top, because I want to add a bit more shimmer to it, but it also helps just set it in place. Obviously you can go full out and do like loads of different powder eyeshadows on top, but I wanted to make sure I kept this like a quick look and a quick everyday simple look. So yeah, just I went in with that ruby shade, just to add a bit more shimmer, but also it's just going to help set that cream shadow a bit more to the eyes, and yeah, just lock it in place to make it last that bit longer. Like I said as well, the grass eye tints in particular, they do dry themselves down and do set themselves, so that is great. So that's something to also bear in mind when you're finding a cream eyeshadow. Just see what it says, whether it might stay creamy, in which case yeah, you will need to make sure your base is matte and you possibly set it. But with something like this, where it does naturally set and kind of dries down to a more powder formula once it's on the lids, that will really benefit you if you've got oily eyelids. I hope I wasn't speaking too fast then. I have a habit of doing that. But that is kind of this video done. Like I said, I wanted to be quite quick, simple every day, and just my quick tips and tricks for working with cream eyeshadows. So I really hope you found that helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.